Welcome to the Lost Rewatch. I was going to say midway through season 5, but I'm not there yet. But I say the All-Stars are here today. Jeremiah, Ralph, and Chris from the official Lost podcast. I think it was one of your weaker podcasts, I think, out there that had to deal with Lost, but it was okay in the time, right?
I did many podcasts. Lost was one of them.
Yeah. But Chris, since you're new here, we asked how you got involved with Lost. So, what was your Lost experience?
I was working at ABC at the time in the publicity department at their internal agency, and I remember watching the pilot before everyone else got to see it back before it premiered, and I was just smitten by the show, just taken in immediately. And then the scripts started coming in for the shows before they had even shot them, so I had a chance to start reading the scripts and kind of getting ahead. And by the time I got to White Rabbit, it was just like, oh, are you kidding me? And at the time, I had also been really getting into podcasts. And immediately I came to, I went to the director, one of the publicity directors, and I said, have you ever heard of podcasting? I said, this is the perfect show for this. And everyone kind of looked at me cross-eyed. They were like, podcasting, what's that? I said, okay. I said, just trust me. I said, this is what we need to do for this show, and here's how we're going to do it. And just kind of pitched them the plan and went and did it. And we got podcasting as soon as possible, and the rest is kind of history. But Lost took me in just as much as it took everyone else in from the fan side. So,
well, that's good that you came up with it, because it was the perfect show to podcast about.
Yeah, it really is. It's perfect for podcasting.
It's how I got into podcasting, because I was watching Lost, and around season 2, I left my job and I was working from home, and I was just looking on the internet for any sort of theories or anything going on with Lost. And then through that, I found the Transmission, Ryan and Jen's show, and then the Lost podcast with Jay and Jack. And yeah, it didn't even occur to me that this was something that people were just doing from their homes. I assumed, well, with the Transmission, I thought it was a professionally done podcast. When I got to Jay and Jack, I'm like, hold on, something's going on here. And then I was like, okay, cool. So this is something that anybody can do. And so a little bit later, I did it myself. And yeah, it is the perfect like format to consume Lost, like information.
Right.
Well, and that the illusion is that it is professional, right? I mean, we would, back in the early days, we didn't even have we just had a DAT recorder, and I would go over to the offices, to the writers' offices, and just kind of hole up there with them and sit in. I think we would sit in either Carlton's office or in Damon's office and just record. And then later we got a clunky CD recorder. I was recording this stuff to like literally CD, and like it was really ghetto, in the sense that like we would take, and I would set up the microphones. Like Jeremiah, your rig is way more professional than what we had. We would literally I would take the cardboard box that had the DAT tapes in it, and I would put it in the middle of the table, and then put the microphone on top of it so that it was closer to their mouth.
Nice.
So yeah, you're just as professional as the rest of us.
Yeah, I feel like the first couple of podcasts that we did with me and Ben is we had a MacBook laptop sitting on a stool, and we're sitting huddled next to each other, talking directly into the laptop. But it was enough to where people would listen, and it's like, oh, this is crazy. So then once you started kind of getting listeners, you're like, okay, we can probably try to get a better microphone. And,
well, that was
I'm still using the same one now that I did back then.
Actually, Jay and I's slogan was it's a podcast, anyone can do it, because that was our slogan.
Because you guys did it.
Yeah, exactly.
Right.
I remember our first one. We sat around. It was at the rink up where Jay worked at Cool Ventures, this day camp thing, and we had one mic, and like you said, we were this close to it. And I think I said 3 words the whole podcast. Just kept repeating, most definitely,
most definitely.
Yeah.
And it's just like, all right, this will be over in a week, so I don't have to keep doing this. But
and
you guys are hitting 15 years. 14 years.
Well, let's see, October. Yeah, 15 years. I guess it already is 15. It would be 15 years October.
Wow.
It was October 2005. October 1st, 2005.
That's crazy.
And people go, how many
used to-
episodes? I go, I have no idea.
Full disclosure, once I found out that podcasts were just people kind of sending out these signals into the world, and I started doing it, I took it very, very personal. I started like really like embracing the podcast culture. So when more professional people started doing it, like the Official Lost podcast, I started like wagging my finger like, how dare they? This is our turf. This is the thing for the fans.
Damn you,
How dare
Chris.
there be an Official Lost podcast? But what's funny is there was, at the time, podcasting was so there wasn't a lot out there. It was really, really a niche thing that there was one Saturday where I went on iTunes and checked the numbers for TV and film, and we had surpassed the Lost podcast, the Official Lost podcast, I think one of the weekends, and I was very, very happy. I was like, all right, I showed them.
Disney almost shut down because of that.
Yeah.
But that's the great thing about but that's the great thing about Lost, right? You know, and Damon and Carlton always said it was that the show is a bit like an iceberg, right? And what you would see on broadcast is literally only the tip. And then so all the things that you all theorized on, all the things that we talked about on the podcast, that was starting to go to that deeper level, you know. And I remember the thing that also got me really excited was between, I think it was season 1, season 2, when, you know, that ARG happened. That just kind of took the storytelling off of the television. And it was really one of the first examples for me of transmedia storytelling, where suddenly you're like following you have to go watch that commercial over there because there's a hidden clue, and then there's a story over here. You know, It really became this deeper level of interactivity. And I don't think any of that would have happened if it wasn't for fans like you guys, you know, getting in there and starting to talk about the show from the very beginning and kind of building this fan culture where it was a two-way conversation.
Right. And this is around the time that I first got my first TiVo. So I was DVRing the show, and I was able to pause and go back. And it was also one of the first HD shows that I ever watched. I remember at one point we would go to our friend's house because they had an HD TV, and we'd be able to watch it, you know, in full HD and just be like blown away and be able to see kind of everything being presented. And I don't think if you had a non-HD TV, like a 4x3 TV, I want to say that you missed the sides. They didn't broadcast it in letterbox. So seeing it on the HD TV, you would get more visuals.
Yeah.
The Dharma Shark was like that. I think that's a perfect example, right? That was at the end of season 1, right? And that was like literally in the lower left corner of the frame. And I don't even know if that was TV safe or not, but like that shark was barely there for a second. And if you didn't have an HD feed, I don't think you would have seen that Dharma Shark stamp.
I think most people found that online, right?
Right.
Yeah. It was one of those things where I think people found that online. I said, no way. I went to my TV, which was a regular tube TV, but I still had the TiVo. And I went back, and I was really hard to see on the regular tube TV. But yeah, at my friend's house, he's like, oh yeah, I saw it. I'm like, okay. Cool.
Oh, well, then these are all the good examples of why the having the internet out there, for having the podcast and have all these different sites out there in the forums, was so important for us Lost fans, because for those who were missing out on those things, to be able to go online and find it, go, oh wow, I missed that. That's awesome. So that's why it was so important to have these things out there for us fans.
That Dharma Shark was like a snowball effect.
Yeah,
because anybody who looks for any sort of Easter egg or any sort of information, because we all wanted to know what's happening.
Yeah.
As soon as you do that Google search, that shark comes up, and you're like, oh, if you didn't see that before, you're like, okay, what else did I miss? And then you start finding different communities. And that's how I got into listening to podcasts, because I'd be sitting there at home writing, and I needed something to listen to just to have on. And I'd ended up listening to these guys, you know, and it's crazy that it just kind of like there isn't really a fandom or a community that's as big or as tight knit as the Lost people, and also overall just incredibly positive. It's like everybody has the same goals to try to figure something out. Nobody's tearing down episodes. There might be some of that. There's a couple episodes that I don't care for, but I tend to gravitate more towards the stuff I want to know about and the stuff I like.
Right, for sure.
Further instructions.
Wow. Let's just list all the ones we don't like, right?
It's two. There's two. There's only two.
What's the other one?
Across the Sea.
I love Across the Sea.
It gave me to a definitive of an answer of science versus faith.
Yeah,
I felt like it was too spiritual.
It was your midichlorians episode.
Kind of.
Oh boy.
But
Let's
like
start that.
midichlorians, though, like midichlorians, you can go and dive deeper into what that means for the saga. And I've heard different theories, and I'm like, oh, the way George Lucas presents it or talks about it is really interesting. So that's the same with Lost. Like, I don't like tearing down Star Wars. I don't like tearing down Lost unless it's further instructions. But for the most part, like, you know what I mean? I like the community still after all this time, here we are again. And I think I say that every time I'm on, Jack, and it's still true.
Well, but it is true. You're not. It's an amazing community. I mean, it just
Right.
Like 99% of the people get along.
Right.
Yeah.
And then there's
the 1% you block.
Yeah. Oh, you totally blocked those people.
Right.
Yeah, I'm the guy that throws shirts at people and
And you know what's funny about the show? What's funny about the show is I was watching Seth Meyers this week, and he made a Lost reference in one of his closer looks, I believe.
Oh.
He got it wrong because he mentioned the end of Lost and everyone being dead the whole time or whatever. And I'm like, it's wrong, but it left a cultural impact where, 12 years later or whatever, people are still remembering this show. With the amount of TV that's out there now and the amount of great shows that have come since, it seems like Lost it's nice that Lost still has a place in pop culture.
Well, I say this all the time. It holds up.
Yeah.
It really does.
These episodes that we watched today I'm like, oh my gosh, Jack picked really good episodes, and then I realized, they're probably all good because season 5 is my favorite season.
Yeah, I didn't really pick them. It was just the next two on the list.
Right.
These two episodes for sure really got the gas cooking, right? Like, up to this,
I love it so much.
The flashbacks really aren't flashbacks. They're moving the story forward in a really substantive way. And don't get me wrong, I love those episodes. Like I mentioned White Rabbit at the very beginning. I love those episodes when the story is kind of a standalone story that just illuminates the character and really gives you a different point of view on their motivation. But in this case, there was so much story to tell that those flashbacks weren't that in this case. We had in This Place's Death, you've got the entire meeting on the wharf. It's like, are we going to go back or not? And then in 316, I mean, it's basically the point at which the flash forwards catch up to the rest of the story. So it starts really colliding in a really interesting way.
Right.
But what I liked about that scene where they're all debating on the docks, it doesn't matter because the island is going to get them there anyway. They don't need to, they didn't have to have that conversation because even when they said, well, how did he show up? Well, he bought a ticket, Jack. But I mean, I don't want to get into the second episode, but Jack, the background that you're showing right now, where even Frank shows up and he didn't buy a ticket.
No,
it's a great turning point for Jack, the character.
That was a laugh out loud moment, though. I agree with you on that one. Like when he says, "We're not going to Guam."
Yeah.
That episode had a lot of funny lines.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
I'll wait till we get to it, but I go, oh, that's right. I kept laughing, and during that episode, I go, it was funny. But anyway, we had This Place's Death. I want to say because Charlotte says, I think it's in this one where she tells Jin, don't bring Sun back to this island. This place is death. Now, John's goal was to bring everybody back. Mm-hmm. Is John responsible for the death of Jin and Sun? Because if he doesn't go back, Sun doesn't come back, and then Jin probably would eventually maybe make it off the island, but he wouldn't be dead, right?
Well, go ahead, Chris.
I was going to say she made her own choice, right? At the end of the day, I mean, you can't take that. You can lay out the case for them, but she had a reason to go back. And so I guess what you're arguing is that if she had known the full truth, if she had known that he didn't want her back, that Jin didn't want her to come back, would she have made the same choice?
I think
I don't know.
I think she still made the same choice.
I mean, I'm always down if we want to blame everything on John Locke, that's fine. but in reality, like we were talking about earlier, is that the island still wasn't done with them. And, no matter which direction, whether John got off there and came to them or not, I think somehow Sun still winds back up on the island at some point. Somehow.
I just, whenever I have a chance, I like to throw Locke under the bus.
Yeah, we'll just throw him on the bus. Yeah, for sure. But,
just have him hit by a car.
Like Chris said, though, Sun made a conscious choice.
Oh, she did.
Obviously, that choice is made because she cares. She cares about Jin so much that she had to get back. She had to try to see if she can bring him back.
But what always frustrates me, she has a little girl.
I know.
This is always
terrible motherhood parenting here.
Yeah, because even when Jin decides, we're way ahead of ourselves here. When he decides to stay with Sun on the sinking sub, you have a daughter. You have a daughter, and I still say I took a lot of heat for that because I was like the lone person back then that was like going, Jin should have left. He had a daughter. People are like, no. I go, wait till you. And a lot of these people were younger then. They didn't have kids. Yeah. Well, now it's what? How many years? 11, 12 years later, they have kids now. They go, oh, you know what? I see your point now.
Sure. Yeah, your perspective changes once you have kids, for sure.
Right. And it always bugged me that they get, But she wants to save her husband though too. So.
Right. Yeah. And correct me if I'm wrong, in this first episode that we're going to talk about, that moment where Sun does have a conversation with her daughter, that's the last time we see her talk to the daughter before going back to the island, correct?
I believe so.
I mean, that's her last moment, at least that we see. We don't know what. There's a good chance that she did talk to the daughter one more time, but as far as what we got to see, that's the last point. And so when I saw it, when you rewatch it again and you see that moment, thinking, oh my God, this is maybe the last time she talks to her daughter.
Right.
Oh,
and her daughter says, "Come home, mommy."
Yeah, that's what makes it more painful. Is come home, mommy. It's like, oh, if you only knew what's going to happen to your mother.
Yeah.
Oh man, it's just every time we watch that scene, it's just painful.
Because when we first watch it, we're like going, okay, she'll eventually come back to her.
Of course. Yeah. Right. Yeah. For sure.
But she could have intended to come back as well. But just like Charlotte, like she went to the island to die and didn't realize until it was too late.
Yeah.
That's why I'm looking forward to Lost: The Next Generation. I would love to see. I mean, I'm assuming Kate goes back to Aaron at the end of the finale, but I would love to see sort of Gian and Clementine
and Walt,
the daughter.
Don't forget Walt.
And Walt. Well, Walt's already there, according to the epilogue, right?
Right.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. The thing when Hurley brings.
But I feel like it would be interesting to see that story about a girl who was abandoned when she was a child and why, and that might be obsessive. And
could it be she finds it because she probably doesn't know what happened to her mom and dad. She just knows they're out of her life. So
no one knows.
Right. So could she go back? Could she find that could be the plot. There you go. She goes to the lamppost, find the island to find out what happened to her mom and dad.
Because let's be honest, this show's full of bad parents.
Yeah. There is not really one good parent in this entire group.
No.
I mean, the squirrel baby seems to be doing great, right? The squirrel baby seems to be doing fine.
Yeah, that's true. Squirrel baby did turn out all right.
Oh, Kate was a good mom.
I guess she
left Aaron, but she left Aaron as well. She left him behind to come back to the island. Same thing.
She had to follow Jack.
Yeah.
Well, that's not the reason she gives. Isn't her whole point to come back to
bring Claire back?
Claire?
Yeah, I think so.
She wanted to bring Claire back. That was
I think she wanted to kill Claire so she could keep Aaron.
She was.
Let's just get rid of this lady. Get rid of her. It's all the baby's all mine.
The reason I love season 5 is because they deal with time and it gives us a chance to see everything, the history of the island. And this episode is like perfect for that. You get to see Danielle Rousseau. There's one bit that I have a question about and I don't think anyone's going to be able to answer it. But there's one point where they're skipping through time, and everyone's getting headaches and everyone's nose is bleeding. And like 45 seconds later, it hits again.
Yeah,
and they're like, it's like they're happening fast. I'm curious if you guys have a theory on at what point in time that 45 seconds was. Like, was it dinosaur times? Was it the future?
Hard to say.
Is there? Can you? I was trying to look for stuff, any sort of evidence that they put during that little 45 seconds, and I was thinking about like Lost: The Next Generation, where they just see them pop in and out for 45 seconds.
Yeah.
Well, that's the fun, is those little hooks that are left there to pick up and explore. I mean, same thing, like, you know, who was on the other boat that was shooting at them, right? There's questions that are
last week. And
I was
questions that are just intentionally left open.
Last week, I know you guys had a long discussion that it's still a mystery about those riggers, the boats that were chasing them. Who was that? What time frame was that? Who was chasing them? We had no idea.
No.
So, but that's the stuff that makes the show so great.
Oh, then we find out that it's them, or is that just something
that's one of the theories
I had?
That's a theory.
No, that's one of the theories, and it's a good one. I like it too. But it never was completely resolved. So it's left to our imaginations.
I always assume
why would they be shooting?
Because they shoot at everybody.
Richard said in the chat, said Jen's dad was the best. So
yeah, for sure.
Oh, it's Fisherman. Yeah.
Yes.
But yeah, that's just one of those questions that will never. But doing this rewatch, so I've come up with a couple theories and a lot of theories, and it's like, how are we still coming up with theories? 16 years. When the show started in 2004, right? So 16 years later, you can still come up with theories on this show.
For sure.
It's crazy. I mean, because they can't be proven wrong. So say whatever.
Right. You can now have.
I don't know. Some of your theories could be proved wrong. Come on, Jack.
No, I don't think so. Not the new ones. No, not the new ones.
Yeah, the new ones are solid, Jack. They're solid.
They're just like.
But that's what's nice about it now is, since we have the whole complete story, we can have a conversation about these theories and see the whole puzzle and be like, oh, well, that works because of also this happened at the end, or that doesn't work because something else contradicts it. So that's what's kind of fun about it, is even though you could come up with a theory while sitting on your couch and then like dismiss it like 2 minutes later with something you remember from like season 6.
Right.
Mm-hmm. For sure.
You mentioned earlier that we could see young Rousseau, and I felt bad for Jen because he can't communicate.
Right.
He's they're take us to the radio tower, and of course the smoke monster comes and kills one of them, and then the other guy's arm gets ripped off.
Montan.
Yeah,
that was a big one.
Yeah,
we first heard about. They were super excited. I remember when we did the podcast for that one. Super excited to close off the mystery of Montan's arm, because it was. I looked it up. I admitted I don't remember until I looked it up. But it was the episode Black Rock, right? When they're venturing to the and they go into the dark territory, and Rousseau makes that offhand comment. She's like, "This is where Montan lost his arm."
Right. And that's what's fun about this season, is our characters get to go and around time to show it. It's not just a flashback. They get to live the flashbacks, which is kind of fun. You get to see that sort of thing. What I felt bad for Jin when he disappeared in front of him and showed up in front of him in his time like 2 minutes later, but for them it had been like several months or years.
Right.
Did
we ever find out why she was actually killing them?
Yeah, let's explore that a little bit too, because I know, Jack, you guys talked a little bit about this last week as well, and because I know some of the people that you had on really wonders whether or not she's just the one that's crazy, not them. But when you rewatch this scene, when Jen approaches her and she's having the argument, and you hear that conversation, I do think they were definitely possessed by something, whether it was the monster again or what, because, we do know, of course, in the final season, we know what happens with Sayid. He was definitely possessed. Right. I do think there was something there. I mean, Russo, all she knew to explain it was as a sickness. I don't know what you want to call it, but I do think that the island had taken over them somehow, because they're ones that did go down in the temple. It was Jen that saved her. I think something. Right. I think her life would have been a lot shorter, including that baby, if it wasn't for Jin keeping her from going down in that temple. I really believe that. And just watching that again, I'm sold now that something was wrong with those people.
Yeah, because I was one of the ones that said, no, I think Rousseau was just the one that was losing it. But when I watched this episode, I go, no, I was wrong. It was.
In fairness to her, after I'm sure a few months on that island, you're going to be a little bit crazy.
Right.
I'd almost like to propose the opposite theory, though, which is
okay.
this is it's even a little more nefarious, which is they get pulled down under there. The man in black appears to them in whatever form he appears to them,
right.
he convinces them. Right, that's what's even potentially scarier, right? You know, because he's very persuasive. Look at how he was able to kind of string Locke along for all those seasons, right? Well, yeah. Right?
Always
he's like, I'm going to appear to him in a cabin, and I'm going to tell him exactly what he wants to hear, and I'm going to get him to move the island for me, right? And then then when he appears next to the frozen donkey wheel later, you know, down in the well, I'm going to appear to him as Christian, and I'm going to tell him the same damn thing, and I'm just going to kind of keep motivating him by appearing to him in these different things. And to me, I think that's even scarier, is that these three people weren't sick, they weren't possessed, they had just heard what they needed to hear to really have something unlocked that was kind of dangerous and set them on a confrontation with Rousseau.
Right.
Which image did he take, though? We know he's a Christian shepherd with Locke. Mm-hmm. What image did he take with Rousseau's?
He could have taken any of the Dharma members, probably.
Yeah,
because by this time they would have been.
But it had to be someone that would convince him, right?
But that's what I'm saying. I don't know that it was necessarily the form, the physical form. It's more about like, what does he say to them? How does he see into who they are and what they want? You know.
Right.
Yeah.
But I do like the idea of them being infected. I think there's nothing wrong with that too.
Yeah, because right before Robert convinces Rousseau to kind of put her gun down and he goes to try to shoot her, you know, he talks a little. There's it's a quick conversation, right? We don't get a lot of information there, but I do know that I believe he like even talks almost like there's nothing, like the monster is a good thing. It's there to protect. I think he says something about it's just there to protect the temple and you know he's definitely in favor. Like he shows some kind of favoritism to the smoke monster. So he's definitely influenced, for sure. You know, and how that was done, whether it's some kind of strange infection or whatever he does to them, or he just physically comes to them and convinces them, but they're definitely been hoodwinked by the monster for sure.
Diana in the chat says, I agree with the idea that they were somehow infected. Her own husband tried to shoot her after she lowered her gun.
Yeah.
And he had Sayid's gun where it doesn't fire, so didn't have to fire.
But maybe he thought she was infected.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, for sure. I mean, and if he's in contact, you know, with the man in black, then who knows what he told him, Robert, about Rousseau. Like, you know, you got to get rid of her. You know, she's bad news, you know, or something. Right. So, for sure, something was going on there.
You don't want to pay alimony, right?
Yeah, I mean, your relationship's in really trouble there when you got rifles at each other's faces. I'm just saying. Yeah,
it's headed for divorce court. I did want to say because we talked about this, you know, with the episode where Ben summons the smoke monster. Did Ben have a deal with the smoke monster? Did he have a deal with Man in Black?
I have no problem believing that.
Because everything, if you watched, it seems like it benefits the Man in Black, everything Ben's doing. Killing.
Ben's such a liar, though, that you just don't know, right? He's got such a silver tongue.
Everything he did, though, seems to benefit the Man in Black.
But I feel like that also comes into play in season 6, where Ben is so tired of not getting the attention from Jacob that he kind of sides with the Man in Black. So I don't know how far back their relationship goes, or if this is, you know, the beginning of it is in season 6. But I mean, the man in Black is, or I don't know, like it's hard to say because he's so. Ben Linus is the #1 fan of the island. He'll do anything for the island. And
Sure.
Who knows where he's getting his information from.
Bigger fan than John Locke?
John's a fan of, I don't know. He's a fan of anybody that'll listen to him or will tell. He's so gullible. He's like a little puppy dog.
Well, you know what?
He loves the island.
He did love the island. You know what's funny about this conversation we're having here is these are really two people or creature, whatever you would call it. These are two people that we cannot trust anyway. I mean, both Ben and the Man in Black have never been able to be trusted.
Right.
So I believe the two of them tried to use each other many times throughout Ben's moments on the island when the Man in Black was still there.
Right.
Diane said, go ahead, Chris.
I was going to say, Diane's comment is absolutely right. I think that, was Ben summoned by the Man in Black, or did Ben summon this? Did Ben summon him himself? That type of push and pull of who's manipulating who, we see that theme echoed across multiple relationships, right?
Yeah.
Everything from Charles Widmore, up at the top, Eloise Hawking, all of that stuff that's going on. But we also see it, more, with Ben Linus himself, with Richard, who's manipulating who's in charge, right? Is it Jack? Is it Locke? Who's, I think there is a lot of push-pull here in terms of the show, which is really fun and makes you question.
It's also set up the fact that Sawyer teaches, I forget what her name is right now. He teaches her the long con. It's during the long con, Clementine's mom. I can't think of her name right now. Cassie. So he teaches Cassidy? Cassie?
I think it's
Something
Cassie.
like that.
But he tells her the best way to con somebody is to make them think that it's their idea.
Right.
And so that theme could be playing here with, Ben. Like he thinks that the island's telling him to do something. It could be the Man in Black, kind of making these suggestions.
Well,
I don't know.
That's why I think because Man in Black has one goal: to get off the island. It's all he ever wanted. Before he became Man in Black, he just wanted off the island. His mom kills him. So he just wanted off the island. So I don't think he's going to be working for Ben.
No.
Like you said, I think he's conning Ben into doing he's smarter than Ben. As smart as Ben is. But Ben, the reason what makes Ben smart is he has information on everybody. Everybody, he knows everything about Locke. He knows everything about Jack. He knows everything about Kate. I mean, everybody. He just has that. He has people tracking him and taking down the information. So, but he doesn't have any information on Man in Black, right?
Right.
True.
And the thing that kind of drives him, I believe, since he does know about all of them, which I'm assuming he got all their information through the lighthouse and using the coordinates for Jacob's list.
Right.
Every person on Jacob's list has a number, and the corresponding number is in the lighthouse. So by this time, since he knows about all of these people who were on the plane already, it means he already knows about the lighthouse, he knows about Jacob's list, and he knows he's not on the list.
Right.
So he's already kind of won. He's a little bit, mad at Jacob.
If he can't be the man,
yeah,
he wants to be the man who stands next to the man.
Yes.
Right.
Yep.
Which is great for him. I feel like he's kind of comfortable with that, but I feel like, he obviously has some sort of inkling that maybe Jacob doesn't really care about Ben, and he may be able to be persuaded by the Man in Black sooner than later, because the enemy of my enemy is my friend. So it could be that Man in Black and Jacob or Ben are working together.
Yeah, I don't know if I thought that the first time around.
Yeah.
This time around, I do believe that's what was going on.
Yeah, I think that's it vaguely strikes a chord because I admittedly have not watched the show recently, but I do seem to recall an episode with Benjamin where we do get that type of emotion where he feels like he's not being listened to and not being respected. Right. So it's a definite common theme for that character, for his character. That's what he wants.
Yeah.
It's almost like John Locke off island, where nobody's listening to him, no one's respecting him. Yeah. His dad pushes him out a window. It's almost the same thing for Ben on the island.
Right.
Yeah.
But I did want to talk about one thing that always cracks me up is when Locke decides to go down the well.
Yeah.
and he just wants to, he's like, I'm going to climb down.
Yeah,
Not
for
get
some
lowered.
reason, I guess it makes for a great TV. He didn't want to be lowered down.
Yeah. What a mistake that was.
Yeah, but
that's Locke. he wants everybody to help him, but at the same time, he like wants to do everything himself, and he can't have it both ways. Like, I mean, he kind of pushes people away, and he's kind of a jerk. And when I watched this episode, because I haven't been watching season 5 to catch up to this episode, I'm like, wow, John still has a lot of people on his side that are willing to help him, but he doesn't take the help.
Do you think it's because of how his dad and his mom and everybody treated him?
Like he's a little gun shy.
Well, it's over his life. He goes, I just can't trust people.
Right.
But I don't know why
into the well.
I don't know why you wouldn't want to be lowered into the well while you're climbing down the rope, because, like I said, if the island moves again, you could be trapped right in the middle.
Oh, yeah.
There's no well. You could have been trapped in the middle.
Yeah, that's a great scene too.
Yeah, but I like how
it disappeared.
Where he's pulling on Sawyer's pulling on the rope, and what Miles goes, I think you can let go now.
Yeah. Oh,
so is that the final? Was that the final leap in time? Is that the final leap we got when he's holding the rope?
I think it was, because from then on he's down in the well, and then he goes and he goes to the frozen donkey wheel, and he puts it back on its groove, and that's kind of the end of it. That's the last flash. Then next time we see John is it's a couple of episodes from now when he comes out at the other end.
I do like when he asked Man in Black, because we know now he's Man in Black. He goes, "Can you help me?" No, I can't.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Yeah.
Oh, and every time I see that scene when you see his bone sticking out of his knee or whatever, oh man, that's so painful. Yeah. Yikes.
Right.
Yeah, he really should have had them lower them quickly down that well.
It was a long drop, though. Do you remember the shot when like you see the light coming up? I was like, oh damn, that's a deep well.
Yeah. And I always forget that until I see it again, and you go, oh yeah, that was a long ways. Seriously. It
was a typical Locke move, but he should have had him lowered,
Yeah.
I don't know. I feel like you could go down a rope really fast, though. Isn't it a little bit like a fireman's pole? Just a little bit. I mean, you don't want to get the rope burn, but I feel like you can lower yourself down pretty quickly.
Yeah, he was going way too slow.
Have gloves. Someone had to have gloves or some sort of tattered clothes that he could wrap around his hands.
And then just slide it down, right?
I don't know. Let me hold on the bucket, turn the wheel, turn the handle. Let me
Yeah. Don't you think you got to have some concern, because they've been going through the time jumps enough at this point to know that there's certain areas you may not want to be stuck in, like you said, where what happens if you're halfway through that? I mean, this seemed very risky. The whole plan was very risky.
Yeah.
I'll give him an A for effort. I mean, he knew he had to get down there. He knew he had to fix this thing, but wow, that was crazy.
Again, but bad move. But like you say, like you just said, he knows that the island is flashing. That well might not be there where they flash.
The world really has it out for his legs.
Yeah, they do. Did his legs take more of a beating on the island or off the island? Because
it's a great question.
I don't know.
He got shot in the leg.
That trebuchet in his leg.
Yeah.
Boone was like, "Hey, John, your leg," and he looked down. He's like, "Oh, there's a big old hunk of metal."
But I always felt, and I'm assuming you guys agree with this, that the writers purposely there was a reason for him to injure his leg before he goes back into the world, because Jack not in a wheelchair in the regular world, and when he's on the island he can walk, but when he's off the island he can't. So I felt like, that they did it on purpose to make sure that he hurts himself. So once he gets back there, we're always still seeing him needing help because he can't walk.
Or they just wanted us 15 years later to make fun of the fact he didn't get help going down to or 10 years later get help.
Either way. It's John. Come on.
But it's I do like the scene before that, though, where Jen takes the machete and goes, "I'll cut the rope.
Mm-hmm.
Don't bring her back.
Yeah.
Promise me." Now, do you think John was lying when he said, "I promise," or was he really willing not to bring son back?
I think he was being genuine. Okay. John was not going to try to bring her back.
Yes, if it was Ben Linus, he would have said it in such a way, kind of like, you cross your fingers behind your back.
Right.
Yeah.
He would have left a loophole. He's like, well, I didn't bring her back. Jack did. Right.
Yeah.
Like that type of loophole. But I agree. I feel like Locke's character is more genuine. I mean, when he gives you his word, he gives you his word.
Yeah.
Right.
Yep.
I agree with that. We like to bash Locke, but I honestly believe he was not going to double cross Jen on that.
Yeah, I think if absolutely. If Ben doesn't kill John Locke, spoiler alert, I think that John, if he was alive during the whole time, I think he would have done whatever he can to make sure that Sun doesn't go back. Now, again, I still think even if John stayed alive and he was the one to try to convince them to come back, I do think that I still think Sun makes this poor decision to go back.
And he left room for that in his argument, right? He left room, like we were talking about a little earlier, he left room for her to have her own agency. He says immediately after that, he goes, I promise. But don't forget, he says, she can find me.
That's
she
true.
Can make her own decisions.
Right.
Good point. Yeah.
So he does kind of create his own loophole there where he basically says, I'm not gonna bring her back necessarily, and I'm not gonna tell her to come back, but she could come back of her own accord when she knows what the facts are.
Yeah.
Because Locke's been told everybody has to come back. I just can't, it's one of those things.
Jen knew that Sun would come back if she knew he was still alive. That's why it was so important for him to make sure you tell her I'm dead. You tell her I'm dead. And of course, does Ben care? No, Ben doesn't care. He's going to say, he's alive, because he knew if Sun knew that Jen was alive, she would come no matter what.
Right.
Well, and skipping forward one episode, Ben says, when Jack turns to him and says, what's going to happen to the rest of the people on the plane here? And he looks at him and he goes, who cares?
Yeah.
One of my favorite lines, by the way, in that episode.
It's a great line, but
I laugh my ass every time he says that. Who cares?
Who cares? And Jack's like,
yeah. Jack's like, wow, you really are a cold-hearted bastard.
And it goes to show you the difference between Hurley and Ben, because in that episode, Hurley's trying to buy up all the tickets, and it makes him look like an a-hole to the receptionist or the flight attendant at the counter.
Yeah,
but he doesn't care. He doesn't care how he looks, as long as he knows those people are safe. And Ben's the opposite way.
Right.
And at the end of the show, compassion wins over being Ben Linus as far as who becomes the new number one.
But Ben had a chance to go to the other side. All the things he did wrong, he still had it. I mean,
yeah,
that will always bug.
And that's why, because, just since you brought that up about the difference, the stark difference between Ben and Hurley makes the Lost World wish we could have just seen maybe just one season of those two together running the island. That would have been so much fun.
That's the sitcom. That's the comedy show that comes after.
That's true. Yeah.
It
would have been
fun.
a great sitcom.
Well, we've talked about 316. Let's move on to it.
Okay.
When
we're going to gloss over the fact about Charlotte dying.
Yeah, she had a great death line.
This was her death episode, Jack. I know you hate her, but
I don't know. I don't hate her. I just have no.
I just want to throw my 2 cents in about the Charlotte thing, because you guys were correctly to say that. I personally blame the writers. I just don't think they gave us enough. Her character does not become interesting till those last few moments of her life when she goes, oh, and hey, by the way, I lived here as a child. And you're like, finally, we get some great backstory here, and she's about to die.
We get it. That sets up season 6.
No, absolutely.
And her death makes Daniel Faraday's storyline so much cooler. Cooler, because now he knows he's going to be back. He knows he's going to see her in the past, and it's so good. Like that
it's
whole
a level
sequence.
Of pathos. Yeah.
Just seeing the look on her saying, he told me to leave and never come back, and I believe that man was you. And just the look on his face, you can tell it's shock, it's horror, but also he knows it's true.
Right.
It's
Yeah.
not like she said he looked like you.
hmm
You
I believe it
know,
was
he-
you. Yeah.
Yeah, he says,
believe that
"Oh,
was
he's
you.
like, oh, I know it's me."
And that
And-
line gets paid off so well too. I'm
Yes.
not allowed to have I'm not allowed to have chocolate before dinner. Like that's her death line. And then it gets echoed later when she's a child.
Yeah.
Right. And
Right.
it just becomes that much more haunting when you hear it. I think the other thing that it also speaks to her death is it also speaks to how the writers treat time travel in this show. And it kind of leads you to that question of, can you change time? Right.
Yeah.
And it's one of the things that the show kind of deals with in its own unique way, through the visions of Desmond and stuff like that, but can you change the past? Can you change the future? Our entire team has gone back. By the time we get to the end of 316, they land in the drink, and then who comes and rescues him with the Dharma bus, right? It's Jen.
Yeah. Jen.
So it's kind of fun because I think it also does kind of add to that. But and she's still alive, obviously. She is a great actress too. So it was really fun to see her kind of play that. Oh yeah.
But I like Jeremiah said, they really didn't do much. They didn't give her much of a story until she died.
Yeah, but that's what's great about Lost is they don't do things linearly.
Right.
So you get this character that you don't know much about, but in their death, it makes that character's backstory so much more richer without seeing like flashbacks, like specifically devoted to her. But as soon as she says that during her death, you're like, okay, we're going to see this play out, and I can't wait to see it play out. And it kind of makes her character more interesting for the future. It's something to look forward to, and something that's going to be paid off. And so
the echoes, yeah.
What's great about the writers and them doing the episode this way is that it treats the viewer with respect. It doesn't treat them like they're stupid. We all know that it's going to come into play. I think a normal show, like before Lost, would kind of hit these things over the head. Things would be very literal. Things would be very linear. But the way Lost is set up, it was kind of a nice way to show that we trust the fans.
Yeah.
That watch this show closely. They're going to be rewarded because of this scene.
Go ahead, Chris.
I was going to say this just plays into the entire thing about Lost. One of the things that I love is that it isn't traditional television. Yes, they have their act breaks with the looks, right? And right, but in a bigger sense, there weren't that many bottle episodes. It was all part of a larger tapestry, especially by the time we get to this point in the run of the show, right? After season 3, that was the big thing. They said, look, we want to tie the show off. We want to put the tile pieces in place and tell a bigger story. And in order to do that, we need to know when the show is going to end. And that's kind of paid off here because we don't have the typical type of storytelling. It becomes truly a little bit more long form storytelling, where to really enjoy it, you have to digest it. It was honestly, this show was made for Netflix and made for streaming before streaming became a thing. Because now you can go back and you can just consume the whole season and really appreciate it in a different way.
For sure.
And that's another thing that I love about the weekly format is that it allowed us podcasters to discuss it, and it gave us time to breathe. When Disney Plus released Mandalorian on a weekly schedule, I was so excited because I knew it would give me a chance to talk about it and discuss it and not get spoiled, 8 hours after the whole season drops. I can't watch all 8 episodes of Mandalorian from the midnight when it drops till 8 a.m, and then get spoiled at 8 a.m. I'm glad that it was once a week.
A true fan would.
they didn't allow me. I'm glad they didn't allow me to watch it because I would have watched them.
Well, Chris brought up that Lost would be perfect on Netflix, but would it have had the same? Would the fan base have been built because you wouldn't have? Like Ralph said, you don't have time for that. It's like, okay, boom, what are we on to now? It's like, wait, what happened this last episode?
Because by the time you're giving your crackpot theory for episode 2, someone already spoiled episode 6.
Exactly.
You're absolutely right. And we did have, I remember sitting around with some of my fellow staff members at Disney, when Netflix had just launched, and we actually had this debate internally, just among ourselves, not that it really mattered, but I've had this debate before, and I completely agree with you, right? Putting these stops in place so that the viewer can't go forward on the story forces you to go back and digest what you've just watched and appreciate it in a different way that you can't with streaming culture. right? So I agree with you, and I think that it changes the way the shows are written. If you know your show is going to be consumed and that you're going to drop the whole season at once, you're probably going to write it and treat it differently than you do. Like they were very meticulous with how they kind of strung out these mysteries and paying off little things here and there. And that was one of the great things that we, with the podcast, all of our podcasts that we did was being able to go back and talk about Montan's arm, right? And really, like, oh, you got a piece of art done. You appreciate that joke for everything it was. So yes, I agree with you. I think there is definitely something about being able to digest it episode by episode as well.
Well, if it ever reboots, I mean, I think we all would want it to be like The Mandalorian.
Well, if it was on Disney Plus, that's how it would be.
Yeah, but
I know the young kids probably don't want to hear that, but that's what I want, because I'm like you guys, especially as a TV and film podcaster. I need week by week, because if you, like you said, once you dump everything at once, it's so hard to talk about it, because some people already watched the whole thing, some people haven't watched the whole thing, and then everything's been spoiled. So
it feels more disposable.
Yeah.
Well, but just to play counter argument to that, though, like I was saying, like if you know your show is going to come out like that, you can plan for it.
Right.
And one of the shows that I think that has done a good job going back a little bit is Chilling Adventures of Sabrina, right? So the way they planned it was they planned it for mini arcs. So it was 6 episodes would drop at a time, 8 episodes would drop at a time, and it was a quick little mini arc where they would have a beginning, middle, and end and pay it off. So it was almost like reading like a graphic novel versus getting a single comic issue. And sometimes, and I think that's a good thing though, because sometimes when you get your single comic issues, and I love me some comic books, but they're very unsatisfying because they're so damn short.
Right.
And network television had the same constraints too. 42 to 44 minutes was your total runtime. You couldn't go the 60-minute episodes like you could with Sopranos at the time, or just kind of Game of Thrones and go, this episode's going to be an hour and a half. So I do think that the medium, your storytelling adapts to the medium that you're presenting on. But the bottom line is that I think you always have to be considerate of your fan culture and growing your fans and giving them that chance to feed back and to digest the show, whether it's in a chunk of 6 episodes or whether it's episode by episode.
Well, another thing, couldn't they? I mean, I don't know if this happened or not, but because they had long breaks in between each episode, could they see how, like, a character? I mean, the writers, was there characters not working or the storyline's not working? Could they tweak it because the fans don't? Because again, there was podcast message boards, the internet was huge. They go, this just isn't working. Let's tweak it and mix it up. And
I might be talking out of line, but I feel like when it comes to network TV, things are set on a schedule. You have a release date and it has to meet that date. And then you get a certain amount of episodes that you need to write and present on specific days. So I don't think they had a lot of time to mess around with stuff. Because it was a longer season, they still had to produce those episodes because they were set on a timeline. It had to be done. Netflix could do the whole story.
Yeah. I'm talking more about like season 3 where they had 6 episodes and then we're off for 4 months and they go, this Nikki and Paulo thing. It's I can't remember if Nikki and Paulo died before this. Either way, I mean, I'm just saying because like you say with Netflix, boom, it's out. If people don't
because they get to with Netflix, they get to do their whole series and then decide when to release it. So network TV was kind of like, we got to air on this date. I think the Orville, I don't know if you watched the Orville, great show. Season 3 was supposed to come out on network TV in September, but they didn't have their stuff finished, their effects.
Okay.
And so they like, okay, well, it's not going to be on network TV. We're going to move it to Hulu once the effects are done. So I think it's more of a timing thing. They just have, like with Netflix, whenever they finish their show and have it all ready to go, they can just set a date and then start doing the programming, promotional stuff.
But to your point, though, things do happen behind the scenes. There is the reality of a lot of chemistry behind the scenes as well, right? And so Nikki and Paulo, who knows? It could have been a mix of they launched the storyline and then they just changed direction in the writers' room. They saw that the chemistry wasn't working out both ways. As great as the actors may be, sometimes they also just don't want to be there. And we've seen that happen with Lost as well, right? There were certain actors who may have changed their feelings after they were brought on the show. And so while their character was originally sculpted to have a much longer arc, they had to tie it off pretty quickly. And I think that's just the reality with any show, right? But that's the beauty of it as well, is that sometimes these constraints can actually result in much more creative work. And those rails, those things that the realities that box you in, force you to actually be more creative. And sometimes the results can be amazing.
Yeah.
Sure.
You talked about Star Wars earlier, but in this Disney era of Star Wars, my two favorite movies that Disney's put out, Star Wars related, are Solo and Rogue One. And both of those were like full of production problems. And I think them having to kind of fly by the seat of their pants made those movies better. And I think that's why George Lucas originally, when he did Star Wars, he was doing it. He didn't have all the time in the world. The studio was breathing down his neck. So you just kind of have to go and problem solve as you go. And it kind of lends itself to having some sort like a frenetic nature to it. And I feel like Lost had that same sort of frenetic nature with Echo, his early demise. I don't know if the reason, like the DUIs were a reason for certain cast members to go away, but it had this sort of like fly by the seat of your pants, which a lot of people would say, oh, they're making it up as they go along. Well, that's what storytelling is you make it up as you go along. So that's just,
I've never understood. I don't understand why. I've never understood why people get upset with that.
But things like this with Charlotte dying, it's there to set up a future storyline. So it's kind of like, I like the mix of sort of this. It feels very much fly by the seat of your pants, but also structured perfectly. Like it's a weird mix. Like I don't know how to describe it, but Lost felt very unique that way. Like it felt like things were just out of control, but they were able to pick up the pieces and kind of just set them all neatly in a row to make everything work out. I mean, I'm in the minority maybe as far as general public goes. I feel like maybe the general public may have said like they're just making it up and it's just.
But who cares?
Scribbling, yeah, but
I said the same thing about PSG, and I go, well, I enjoyed it. I don't care.
Yeah, but that's where this whole thing proves them wrong. Is this storyline with Charlotte setting it up? I don't know if they had something in mind as far as the chocolate line, or if they just put that out there and just were like, we'll get it later. But either way, it shows you that there was some sort of plan. Because I think at the end of this season, we get Juliet talking about the vending machine and the dollar.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah. The vending machine ate my dollar or whatever. And that gets paid off in the finale, I think, or the penultimate episode. So it's like,
yeah.
I mean, I don't know if they just dropped that line in and said, well, we'll figure it out later, or if they were actually like thinking ahead, but it makes it cohesive.
I think season 4 on, they had a game plan.
Yeah.
I was going to say at this point they had a roadmap as far as their end date and everything. So I do feel like that there's been a lot of time spent in the writing room working on how they were going to end this thing. And so whether or not all those lines were put in there and like, hey, let's get back to this, or if they already had it planned out ahead of time, like we're going to have this line here and it's going to be finished. Payoff is going to be in this episode. I don't know exactly how far ahead they had, but clearly they had a roadmap at this point.
Yeah.
And sometimes it's also the reverse, where your actor delivers a really, really great line and you see that it just, wow, it pops. And then so when you're writing the episode later, you go, hey, let's pull back that line because that was a really great callback.
Right.
Yeah.
We
at the time we watched this particular episode, I'm sure none of us knew for sure, but I know I was hopeful that I was going to see Daniel talk to little
Oh,
Charlotte.
yeah.
Right.
And then we got it and it was beautiful and it was wonderful.
I was going to say earlier, I think Charlotte's biggest problem as a character, she was overshadowed by Miles, Daniel, and Frank Lapidus.
Big personalities.
They were so popular with the fans.
They were.
I mean, there was a great line in this, before we get on to 316, where Sawyer brings Jin over and goes, translate. He's talking to Miles. He goes, I'm from Encino.
Yeah.
Or whatever he said. And then Charlotte, he goes, no. And he goes, and he starts talking to Charlotte. and Charlotte speaks Korean. So,
right,
and
was, Klingon.
Yeah, Klingon too. That's important.
Also, I have nothing bad to say about the writers of this episode. Kitsis and Horowitz did this one, and they did Tron Legacy. So nothing bad about Kitsis and Horowitz. And my recognizer here. So
well, that's good. I feel better.
Very good writers.
Do you have something to say, Chris?
Oh, I don't remember how did he know that she spoke Korean? Was that Ness? Was that
Jin knew that because he knew that she knew. Her son knew. The time where her son and Jin and someone and I think Juliet were walking, and she knew. Son realized that she knew
what they said.
Juliet that Charlotte could understand her.
Right.
Yeah.
So that's because when Sawyer was going over there, he was going to Miles, but obviously it was Charlotte that knew how to speak Korean.
Right. Of course, Sawyer would do that.
Right. That's Sawyer. But we've already seen how Sawyer's evolved though. He's become a leader.
Yeah.
You know, he's becoming the guy you can count on, except the guy that would son of a bitch, I'll screw you, and all the different stuff that he did for the first 3 seasons. But anyway, you guys ready for 316?
Yeah.
I could remember when this first came on the episode. You hear Hurley yelling for help, Jack slinging the bamboo again, like going, "Hey, what the hell's going on with this show?" Because at this time we don't know they're on the plane.
Right. Yeah, it was obviously a great payback to the very first episode, and you didn't know what's going on, but this is a big episode because at the time when you're watching this, you're wondering like what's going to happen. And we get to this finally. I think like Chris, you had mentioned earlier that everything is coming together now at this point in the season. And granted, we still have to wait till the very end of season 5 to know exactly how everybody got where they were supposed to be. But still, this is a big moment for us because as fans that we're like finally seeing who goes, how everybody gets back and all that stuff. So it's great. The opening is a little confusing, but then we start to realize what's happening here. We're going to get the story on how they get on the plane and get back to the island. So,
and mythology-wise, this is a really satisfying episode too. I mean, we get to visit the lamppost, which let's be honest, that's a freaking cool station. Period. Yeah. Right. That's not where you end, and you see the world map on the floor, and the giant pendulum is swinging across it. I mean, that just activates your imagination.
I remember watching this the first time, and my mind was blown when I saw that. I'm like, "Whoa, that is so cool! That's how they mapped out and figured out how to find the island." And also just at this point, obviously, we knew that the island must be moving, but then of confirming it, that Eloise confirms what we all had figured, that the island is constantly moving, and just that whole thing, the lamppost. That you're right, that blows me away.
And does that kind of do a payoff with the magnetic field of the island? Is that how that
answered all that stuff? The time difference between when you're off the island and coming back, that whole stuff with Daniel Faraday that you get in season 4. I mean, all that stuff gets paid off by us finally seeing the lamppost. In my opinion, I think it does.
Right. I would agree.
Yeah, it's awesome. That was great.
And is this our first off-island Dharma station?
Did we get to see? Yeah, I think so. Right?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah.
I mean, I think they at this point they had foreshadowed the exit being in Tunisia. I think that if I remember correctly, that had been foreshadowed by this point. Obviously, they pay it off when John appears there at the beginning of the next episode. Yeah. But those are really I think this is the first like real world place where you actually get to see hey, there's more than where they actually acknowledge there's more than one magnetic energy source. Right, and that they're all kind of connected. I think that's kind of important and really kind of cool, actually.
Sure.
Is anyone worried about Eloise getting hit by the pendulum when she was walking across?
Yeah, she did walk across that very carelessly.
It's almost like a Groundhog Day thing or something. Like she knows when not to get hit. She's been through there so many times.
Yeah, she's probably stared at that thing a lot, so she's got it memorized. You're right.
Desmond did the same thing, but Desmond was like, why are you listening to this guy? And you got to understand. And she goes, what she say? The island's not done with you yet, Desmond. I'm done with the island.
The pendulum hits him.
Poor Desmond.
Yeah.
Mm.
Also, I had a theory too a couple weeks ago that the girl in the butcher shop is Annie from the island.
Mm. Not bad. I like
the,
that one.
Oh,
The one that was keeping John on the keeping John cool.
It's the only time John has been cool.
Yeah,
Pretty much.
She did know. I mean, she's like, when Jack shows up, she's like, "Oh, I know who you are.
Right.
Don't worry. Yeah, I heard all about you."
And I just assume that obviously Ben shared a lot with these people, but yeah, she did seem like she was very.
But
not even a question. She knew exactly who it was.
But Ben also refers to her as a friend.
True.
How many people does he refer to as a friend?
Not many. That's a good point. Yeah, because Ben doesn't make a good friend, in my opinion.
Well, I don't think I ever heard him say, "I have a friend."
Right. No, it's true. That's a really good point, Jack.
So, again, you can't prove it wrong. So there we go. But this was a fun episode. But like you said, it was also a great episode. It was different theories and all the different stuff going on. And
yeah, I mean, we get small pieces of everybody's story. We don't get the full story, like I said, until we finish throughout the rest of the season. But you get these little pieces, and every little moment, it just ties back in later on. Especially when you do a rewatch, this episode is way more satisfying because you know what's to come, and you can kind of pick up on all those little pieces that were just barely, was only showed to us at this point, but then we get the rest of it later. It's just, I don't know. I like this. I like this episode. I thought it was really good.
I agree. There's a lot of Easter eggs here, a lot of things for fans to really go back and enjoy. I mean, even down to like when Jack goes to visit, Ray, his grandfather. And by the way, Ray Shepard, who plays the actor, obviously he's from Justified, where he played his dad in there. Yeah,
a bad parent.
X-Files. He's also from X-Files. So this guy has history right there, ties it to all these other great fans. But when he walks in there, what's going on? There's a magic show, and we get a shot of a white rabbit, right? So it's just like little touches like that just kind of tie it all the way through. The other little touch that really jumped out to me was, what book is Benjamin reading on the flight? He's reading, Ulysses by James Joyce. So, one of my favorite things about the show was how they did kind of drop these literary playlists, if you will, these touchstones that the writers all loved. And there's a long history of that. And, I'm sure lots of people have gone and gone on to read these books as a result of it. So that was just a fun little one where I did pause.
I never did get into the Lost Book Club, sort of.
No, but it was a big thing. That's a big thing, the Lost Book Club. Absolutely.
Yeah. Those books aren't easy things to read either. It's not like just, I think you can just pick up as you're falling to sleep. Like, I'm just going to read a chapter. You'll be asleep in 2 minutes, right? This is the type of book that you need to read.
It's deep literature.
Coffee. Yes.
What I liked about the Jack and his grandfather story is that Eloise had just told him that, you need to bring something of Christians.
Yeah.
And put on Locke. And he's like, he's like, my dad's been dead for 3 years, and all this, he's going on and on and on and on and on. So he gives a call his grandpa, and his grandpa
has shoes.
Put shoes into the whole things. Yeah, it's like, and Jack's like, well, these aren't your shoes. No, those are your dad's.
But this is such a great bit of storytelling where it sets up the fact that John Locke is now sort of the surrogate for Christian Shepherd and Flight 15. Like he's playing that role for the Jarrah flight. And so it really helps hammer home the idea of Locke becoming the Man in Black. Because of these ties to Christian Shepherd, you're like, that's why Christian Shepherd was able to walk. Because we're now seeing what happened to John Locke is the same thing that happened to Christian Shepherd.
Right.
Like if the shoes are kind of an anchor point for the audience. It's like a signpost that kind of says, these are important. You might want to pay attention to these and follow these. And then when you see what it does to John Locke, you can go back and say, okay, that's what happened to Shepard. So,
And correct me if I'm wrong, I've always, and you guys probably know this better than I do, but I've kind of always thought that all these circumstances had to happen for the Man in Black to take John's appearance on the island. I wasn't quite sure, but I just kind of always felt like that was necessary for him to do that. Now, granted, that wasn't, correct me if I'm wrong, was fully answered, but it was at least a theory I always had, is that all those elements had to happen. Him being on the plane, dressed in that, with those shoes on, somehow to make sure that the Man in Black could fully take his appearance once they got to the island. Just a theory, but I like what you just said about that.
I
like that theory. The other thing I also like is going back to building on what you were saying, Ralph. If the shoe fits, wear it. Is these shoes are an important metaphor throughout the whole show, right? Jack takes the time to tell us the story about what he thought about his father and that he didn't deserve a good pair of shoes, and so he gave him those white shoes. Well, those white tennis shoes, they were there early in the season. Right. You see Christians wearing those shoes. Right. And then, similarly, Locke, it's obviously a different pair of shoes, but Locke's shoes are equally important as well because he hadn't been walking in his shoes when he first appears on the island. So we get that great shot of his shoes when the first time he stands up and gets out of that wheelchair. So there is something interesting about that metaphor and the fact that they're able to tie that through here with Jack in taking his father's shoes and having that story.
Mm-hmm.
So are the shoes? So the shoes, he needed the shoes. Is that what?
Well, it's like in Frank Oz's story, right? You got to click the shoes together.
Oh yeah,
the magic shoes.
No place like home.
And I do think that moment when the shoes are presented to him there in the nursing home, I do think that really helped Jack believe that what they were doing is right and that this is what's going to bring them back to the island. He sees the shoes and realizes, wow, I was just told I needed something and here they are. So I really felt like that kind of helped take him to fully believe that this was going to happen.
So, okay, hold on. I'm trying to work something out here. It's these shoes that are presented to Jack clearly has an effect on Jack. And these shoes
they definitely did, yeah.
These shoes are black.
Of course.
The other shoes that had no meaning to Jack were white.
Yeah.
And so you have the black and the white, and it's like I don't know what that means. I have to think about it some more, but there's something about them making the shoes black this time around and having that be the symbol that Jack, because Jack in this episode is kind of coming around to the whole faith side when he tells.
He's slowly becoming John Locke, yeah.
Yeah, and he asks of Kate, well, how did he end up on the plane? And she does the very scientific approach, which says they bought tickets. But he's starting to become a man of faith in this episode. And so those shoes, seeing the nice pair of shoes that were his dad's, he's now he thinks about that and the time on the island, and he's starting to kind of get that John Locke love of the island, like this means something.
I love that.
He becomes obsessed with these, and I mean, think about Jack putting shoes on John Locke. Like how far they've come from bickering in the Dharma station at the Swan to this point where Jack respects John Locke more than he did his father.
Yep,
because he cared about these shoes. And it was just the fact that it was his father's shoes that made him,
He even makes a comment. He makes a comment saying, "Somewhere up, I know you're up, and somewhere you're laughing."
Right.
I love that
act. Too. It's such a nice act too. When he tries to make a joke out of it, but I mean, putting the shoes on him like that, there's something very humbling about that, very intimate about that as well. And it was just a really touching moment. And I think that you could see that it affected Jack during that moment as well. It was a really great piece of acting.
I also think that older Jack, like previous, like Jack in the past, wouldn't talk to himself like that. Because when he's saying somewhere you're laughing at me, I think he knows that John could probably hear him somewhere.
Yeah.
Like Jack would never believe in some sort of afterlife, and I don't think he would really talk to himself. He's not like that sort of Spider-Man quippy kind of guy. But here he is, kind of acknowledging an afterlife and acknowledging that John Locke can hear him, wherever he is.
Well, he even says to when he reads, he gets the suicide note. He goes, I've listened to enough. I don't want to hear anything else you have to say or something. It was something that
I don't need to hear anything more, John. I'm doing what you asked me to do. I'm going back.
Back off.
Yeah.
But were we shocked? I can remember at the time, were we shocked when everybody showed up at the airport?
No, but it's fun. It's what you need, Look, it's awful. Everything because we all know that they're gonna end up back on the island. I think pretty much, but at the same time, like it's fun to see that all the pieces fall into place, and then the payoff with Lapidus is just like the icing on the cake. Like it's just all of it's perfect because that's what Lost is. It's always been about fate, coincidence, and just seeing all of this stuff come together was phenomenal. I loved it, and it's still up for debate whether it's just they bought their ticket or it's fate.
Plus, we don't know what happened to Ben. Ben's just all bloodied and beaten up. But we don't know that at this point.
Right.
You don't get that. Oh, Ben.
You don't get that payoff till later, but boy, at the moment, I know when watching it, you go, wow, what in the world did he do now? That's all you could think of. You knew he did something bad.
Well, you have go ahead, Chris.
I was going to say the other thing I really like about that sequence, kind of, and Ralph, you were kind of hinting at it as well, is that again we get a nice callback to. I think it was at the end of season 1, right? When you get that nice sequence where everyone's boarding the plane, right? And you see people making eye contact even though they don't know each other yet, and you're contrasting that with now the deep relationships that have formed, like when Charlie's getting on the plane and they're walking past each other, and all those moments that are kind of played out. Again, that kind of falling into peace sequence. And it's a really nice callback to that. We have that, and that's the end of the episode. And then the beginning of the episode, we get that nice callback to the pilot as well when we start with Jack opening his eyes. So in many ways, this was a reboot episode that was paying homage to where the show had been, but at the same time, it was spinning it forward and saying we're honoring our past, but we're also moving forward. And so very, very beautiful storytelling there too.
It sure is, and it's a typical great Lost episode because it answers questions, but it also creates many questions as well, and that's what makes a great Lost episode. Is that it answers a bunch of stuff, but then it also opens up a whole slew of questions that you have. Like, why is Sayid, being handcuffed? What's going on with that? And how did Hurley get here? And
Kate for the reenactment, right?
Yeah, exactly. And so how good was Jack feeling on that plane after Kate decided to sleep with him again and pull his chain along? I every time I would come to that scene and she's like falls in his arms and goes, and I'm like really Kate, you're dragging him along again.
Well, was he going to say no?
But he's not going to say no. I mean, I would say no.
I'm here for you, Kate. But I do like what she tells him. She goes, what happened to Aaron? Don't ever ask me that again. Ever.
What have I done?
Ever.
Yeah.
I'm like going,
okay. He's like,
right. Okay. All right.
Listen, I'm going to get some. I won't say anything. You know what I mean?
I just had to put shoes on a dead guy, but that's okay. Don't just keep screaming at me.
Oh. But as you guys were saying, Jack's a different person at this point.
Yeah. But why was she so, I'm trying to remember why she was so, don't ask me that question. Ever. You
mean why was she so passionate about it?
Well, what was the big deal? I mean,
I know, because after, especially once, I will agree, that does kind of bother me a little bit, because it's like, once we get the payoff as far as why she wanted to come back, you're thinking, really, Kate, you could have said that. I feel like Jack would have been open to that.
Yeah. I don't see, other than for maybe us fans, what happened to Aaron? Who'd she give Aaron to? It's like, she didn't have any parents, right?
Yeah.
She killed one of them. The other one died. So,
I mean, I do like that characters hold secrets, though. Just in general, in terms of writing,
right?
The fact that they're not ready, she's not ready to tell you, right? She'll tell you in her own time when she's ready.
Yeah. Well, this was an emotional decision that she was making here. I mean, she obviously, like you, Jack, said, she had become a mother at this point. She's really emotionally attached to this child, but also knows that she should not be raising the child. It needs to be Claire, and she's got to go back to get her.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that's what it is. I think it was just her being very, very emotional about this moment.
So can we say Kate cares more about her child than son?
I don't know.
I think she just has just this big amount of guilt weighing on her.
Yeah.
For having Aaron. And,
for sure.
And taking Aaron away from the mother.
But it wasn't her fault, though.
No, but I mean, still, if Jack presented an opportunity to return to the island, and this was going to be her one shot to reunite mother and daughter, and she hates that. She has to do it. Yeah, mother and son. She hates that. I keep thinking squirrel baby.
Oh, squirrel baby. Nothing wrong with squirrel baby.
Was squirrel baby a girl?
It's a good question.
I didn't see any nuts on the squirrel baby.
That's good.
So it's a hot button issue. It's a hot button issue with Kate, I think. She knows that she has to do it, but she doesn't want to talk about it. And then who knows if she knows about Jack's past and that Claire's Jack's sister. Because there's a time where they were gotten together and then fallen apart. Their relationship came together and fell apart.
Yeah.
So it may have come up. We don't know. But it's a hot button issue for her for sure.
I didn't like the part where she said, "I'm going back for Sawyer, Jack." I didn't like that.
What? Okay,
oh man!
What do you think they put in their bags? If you know you're going back to the island, are you just filling your bag?
Good. That's good.
And
what do you put in your bag?
And
Sawyer would have beer, right?
Yeah, that's true. Yeah,
Right,
that's a good question. Though.
Is that what you do? Do you bring like a 12-pack of beer with you to give to Sawyer when you show up?
Yeah.
Do you bring peanut? Did Kate fill her bag with peanut butter for Claire to lure
Did
her out of the woods?
Did she know about the peanut butter being her thing?
I just keep thinking of Ralph. I just keep thinking of Revenge of the Nerds. Remember that old movie, like when they're packing to go to college, and he unzips his bag and he just starts laughing. It's just like full of condoms.
Yeah, that's right.
But I mean,
I never thought about that. What's in there? Because the big thing back then was what was in Hurley's guitar case.
Yes, that's
right.
true.
Right?
That was a big mystery, which obviously gets paid off later. But that's a good question. What would they put in their suitcase?
Well, definitely hiking shoes.
Yeah, that's what I said. They're all. I mean, I would be dressed. Like, was Jack wearing a suit? Was Jack wearing a suit on the plane?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, he was.
He was
Because they had to replicate.
Yeah.
But they had to replicate everything. It's not like he could walk on like Jungle Jack, with like his hat and his bivouac and stuff.
Right.
Get your adventure shirt with a machete and a bandolier, and you're like.
He'll get that soon enough when he wears those ill-fitting coveralls, whatever you call that jumpsuit, the Dharma jumpsuit.
Yeah. There was another great line by Ben when Jack goes, "How can you read?" He goes, "My mom taught me."
Yeah, I love that.
Even then, he didn't.
No, he was lying then too.
He was lying.
Yeah,
he's always lying.
Yeah. Well, and Hawking calls that out. Jack, when they go into the lamppost, and Jack goes, "Is he telling the truth?" And she looks and she goes, "Probably not."
Yeah.
Why do you have to ask if he's telling the truth?
Why
even
have
ask?
You not been on the show with us for 5 seasons, Jack?
Yeah. This man is never telling the truth.
And then, of course, we talked about a couple times Frank's great line because Jack goes, because he hears the voice. He goes,
"Yeah,
I need to speak to your captain." Okay. Because if I walked up to I say, "Hey, I need to speak to the captain," they'd tell me, "Get back your damn seat and shut up."
Yeah.
He looks so odd, freshly shaved though. Like when you first see him walk out, you're like, "Whoa, all right, okay."
Yeah. You almost didn't recognize him. He looks so different.
Oh, so good, so good. When he's like, "Oh, is that Sayid?"
Is that?
Man, how's it going? And It's a great. This show. This episode just had so many great lines, and it was just a fun show. But also, like I said, it had Easter eggs and all the other stuff. But But then we have the end where who comes rolling up in the Dharma van?
Jin.
Yep.
Yep.
And what's
Playing
great
some rock
about
and music too.
Yeah.
Dharma Lady,
Yeah.
I still have that. It pops up on my iTunes Shuffle every once in a while.
Oh, really?
Downloaded it way back in 2008 or whenever it was. But what's funny is in This Place's Death, I like that they kind of nail, like kind of hammer home or whatever the saying is that Jin is still speaking broken English.
Right,
and they have to draw the tower in the sand, and that sets up the next episode where Jin's English is totally great. Like
I want Jin on my team at Pictionary because I don't know how he got Radio Tower out of that drawing.
I also like going back to Charlotte's death. They did a little plug for Geronimo Jackson there too.
Oh,
that
yeah,
was a nice little Easter egg callback, and also prepping you for what was about to come next, going to Dharmaville.
Someone was it Charlie that said he had never heard of Geronimo Jackson?
Yeah, I think
was Geronimo Jackson a Dharma Initiative band that was on the island? Like, do you think Geronimo Jackson? Because Charlie never heard of it, and Charlie should have heard of a lot of bands.
Let's be honest. Charlie was also drugged out of his mind wearing a giant diaper at one point in music videos. So, suspect.
But the song is called Dharma Lady. The song's called Dharma Lady. I have a feeling Geronimo Jackson is an on-island band, like a group of guys jammed out. They have equipment. Right. Maybe they got a record.
They call their album Magnetic Attraction or something.
I've never heard that theory. That's a good one, though. I
think there's a whole Scooby-Doo spinoff here with a Dharma van and the Geronimo Jackson group going on tour.
I like it for the first one to see the Dharma van because it's so important to his character, the Dharma van. So,
yeah, that's true.
Added to the list of lost spinoffs.
Yeah. But is there anything else we want to cover in these two episodes?
No, I do have a question for you guys. I had found the fact that apparently both this episode and The Life and Death of Jeremy Bentham was written around the same time, and the producers originally were going to have the Life and Death of Jeremy Bentham was going to air before this one. What do you guys think about that? Now we've had many times to watch this show over and over again. I kind of agree with them. They in the end, of course, felt like it was much cooler to have it air in this order. I tend to agree with the decision they made, but would you guys have liked to seen those episodes flopped?
What's funny is I didn't know when that episode happened. The
Life and Death of Jeremy.
As far as watching these two today.
Oh, gotcha. Yeah,
I wasn't sure. I was like, I don't know if that came before or after, but I knew how Jeremy Bentham died, and listening to Ben talk about his death, and you're just like, oh, these are all lies. I'm like, he's lying about all of this stuff to Jack, and I'm like, wow, what a bastard. But I didn't realize that episode happened after. So not seeing it within the context of that other episode, I thought it was really funny that Jack was, or that Ben was lying the whole time. So I think putting that before,
take away from those lies.
Right.
Yeah. I think it makes it more powerful for Ben's character when you get to this point and you see this episode air and you realize, oh my God, that little wheezing bastard he killed the whole time. He's been lying the whole time. I think it makes it, I think they made the right choice.
I think so too, because it made it great because we were all wondering, how did Locke die? How did Locke die? And,
Right. That was a big mystery up to that point. So I think they did
it right.
Yeah, yes. Agreed. And on top of that, they also did the old trick of they put him back on the island at the end of 316. So they've created that tension. Oh crap, what's going to happen next? Whoa. Before we go there, we're going to go back and tell you another piece of the story. Right. So again, it's like you said, in addition to creating questions, they're also creating dramatic tension here too.
But what's also great about it is we don't find out that Ben's still a villain. Like right now, he feels like an ally to us because he's helping them get onto the plane and do their goal. But I know not you. But what I'm saying is, if that episode came before, we would have been
very good point.
Like, we already know.
You trust him just like the characters trust him at this point.
Yeah,
exactly. And I guarantee you that was a big part of their decision too.
because it's great.
Yeah,
because once he's back on the island now, he's back to being the villain, and we get to see that on the next episode.
They're fooling us, just like Ben likes to fool everyone that he comes in contact with. The writers are fooling us to making us think, oh, okay, maybe Ben's a good guy right now. He's all right. And then you get to the next episode following this one, and you go, never mind, he's not.
But that's what makes him such a fun character is his
God,
dark and light, his flipping flop. You know, it's and same thing like you saw it on JJ's previous show to this, Alias. You know, I can't remember the name of his character, but there's another great character prototype there as well. It's like, you know, is he good? Is he bad? Is he good? It's like he's playing both sides. It's a really fun character.
Oh, you're speaking to choir to me because Benjamin Linus is probably my favorite character on Lost, so always has been.
Now, do we know for sure? Do we know for sure? Because I remember the big. Why would Locke kill himself? There was no.
Because
why would he kill himself? There was
we all know Locke well enough at this point. That man is not doing that to himself.
No, his dad pushes him off a building. He doesn't kill himself. His dad kills his kid. He kill himself. I mean,
he was prepping to do it though. It's like he actually, you know, he was on the doorstep.
He was, but come on, you know, he wasn't go through with it, right?
And do we know for sure he wrote the note to Jack?
I thought Ben writes it. It's been a while since I watched the Life and Death, but I thought Ben wrote it.
I almost feel like Locke. I feel like Locke trying to hang himself.
Oh, that's a powerful moment.
It's his test to see if the island still needs him or not. It's like when Michael could not die. The island wouldn't let him die, and Mr. Friendly, I think this is right, says that the island's not done with you yet. Yeah. You can't. So it's almost like Locke is doing the same thing. He's seeing if he still has worth, because if he does still have worth, the island won't let him die.
Also, Mr. Friendly, another bad dad on Justified. Just saying.
Yeah, but we all know that John has to die, I think, for everything to end up the way it did.
And that goes back to the shoes.
Yeah, goes back to the shoes. But what a great episode, though. Well, both of these, I've enjoyed both of these episodes.
They were fun to watch again.
Thanks for inviting us to watch this. I mean, it was really fun to step back into the Lost universe, and also to be able to kind of dissect it with you all, and kind of go back and really unearth some of these pieces. Like you said, Ralph, I think you said it, or maybe it was you, Jeremiah. I was, watching this with hindsight and being able to know kind of what happens and what's to come. It's still fun, right? There's still things that you're connecting and looking back on.
Yeah, for sure.
Great show.
Yeah, it's good.
Before we go, anything else you guys want to promote something or?
Can I mention my Patreon real quick?
No.
Sure.
Patreon.com/CasinoSkunk. And the only reason I'm bringing it up, which I normally don't bring up on the show, is because Jack was on my most recent episode.
Oh, nice.
I had never seen, in my 43 years on this planet, I have never seen Butch Cassidy and the Sundance Kid. And it's one of his favorite movies, if not his favorite movie. And so we had a discussion about it.
Nice.
So it was a lot of fun. And I if you guys like Jack, which according to the comment section, it looks like you do. You guys are all over here. Go ahead and check that out. Just go to
He's all right. He's okay.
.com and see the link. It's only $1. You'll unlock like 80.
Yeah, I thought it was a fun conversation about Butch Cassidy Sundance Kid.
Yeah. So I'll have to get you back on to do the Sting, because I also haven't seen the Sting.
That's a good one too. You're not going to be disappointed.
I know that, and that's it.
Redford and Newman.
Nice.
Best chemistry.
Yeah.
Oh, not much. I mentioned it last time I was on here. I'm podcasting at a regular basis again. Over there on Golden Spiral Media, we're on Mouse House Weekly. My wife and I are part of a very large team for a Disney theme podcast there, where we kind of cover just about everything Disney. And so me and her have been doing that. We're on every fifth episode. So like I said, it's a big ensemble cast that. And you'll have a different host every week. And so we're on a cycle there. And so the two of us are doing it. And it's very exciting, Jack, because I don't know if I mentioned that my wife does not listen to podcasting at all. Even though I've been doing this since 2010, she's never listening to my podcast before, and now I've got her podcasting. It took a long time.
Nice.
But yeah, we're over there talking about Disney over there at Mouse House Weekly. So it's been a lot of fun.
Nice. And Chris, you want to talk about your Saints or anything else?
Go Saints. Yeah, no, I don't have anything to plug here. I'm just kind of, enjoying being part of the community again. And I'm out there working and doing my stuff in marketing and advertising. And hopefully I'll have something fun to share with you guys soon.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Cool.
Well, this was a lot of fun. This was a long one, but it was good, interesting, fun.
Yeah. Great
It's
conversation.
always fun to talk about. So, and it was nice to see. I hadn't talked to Chris, and I don't know how long. It's been forever.
Yeah. Since before your former football team fell apart.
Oh,
They'd always fallen apart, but
They were always traveling with one wheel off the bus at least.
right. So when you have crappy owners, what are you going to do? The Spanos family is the John Locke of the NFL.
I mean, we don't want them in LA.
Nobody wants LA. I get it. Don't get me started.
yeah.
Don't get me started.
That's a tough conversation to have there.
Another hour and a half video.
Los Angeles is the well.
Yeah.
It is the well. It is the well.
Walk down into it.
Richard says too soon.
My kids say you need to get over it. No, I won't. I rooted for it in the 60s.
Sure. Yeah.
How do you get over something like that? Just go, oh, you're just going to leave me?
I don't know. I wasn't around in the 60s.
I was. I was. I had hair
boy.
there. It was long and flowing and all that stuff.
Long
But
and
anyway,
flowing. I'd like to see a picture of you with long flowing hair.
We kind of see it right now.
yeah.
That's true. If you just move your head a little bit more towards camera.
Like that.
There you go.
We're not going to Guam, are we? Okay. Anyway.
You have been doing a lot of that face swap lately on Insta there.
That's true.
Oh my gosh.
That was kind of scary. I have to admit, I was a little traumatized when I saw your feed.
A lot.
On which one?
Exactly. Yes, all of them.
Well, my wife says I can't even watch the Titanic one. She goes, "You're just an ugly woman."
That's the first. That's the one I showed my wife too, and she was like, "Oh my god, I can't unsee that."
What is going on here?
We're sitting on the couch because quarantine, and my wife's on her phone, and she goes, "Oh my gosh, this video of Jack!" And I just said, "Is it the Shakira one?"
Yeah, is it the Shakira one?
Come on, my
I love
body
the
looks
Shakira one.
pretty good. The Shakira one, doesn't it?
Oh
pretty
yeah.
good.
Yes, your body brings all the boys to the club.
All right.
My daughter's the one that did. She found some app, and you take a picture of it, and it does all these different. Because I thought the Hulk Hogan one was all right, Right?
Yeah. No, it was good.
Sure, yeah. Just keep telling yourself.
I didn't post the Miley Cyrus. I didn't post that one.
Oh
So-
no.
I'm
Were
sure
you
you'll
on the wrecking
I'm sure
ball?
you'll do that next.
Yeah, maybe.
Yes.
Well, next time she brings up the app to have you do it, just say that you think Google's trying to capture your image. So
Is that what it
just
is?
tell her that they're trying to capture your image for face recognition technology. That's really awful.
There you
And
go.
then we don't have to see it anymore.
Some people got offended on it on our Facebook patron page. I'm like going, just a joke. Lighten up. It's 2020. Gotta have something to laugh at, right?
I have something to
Yeah.
laugh at.
It's
That's
offensive.
exactly right. This
Face?
is the year we need something to laugh at.
Yep.
Whatever.
But anyway,
I've been offended by your face for years. I'm not complaining.
Oh.
I'm just
on that,
handsome
This is
Shakira.
I'm gonna send it to your. I'll send it to your. I'll DM you with it every day. And you can
Put my hand up the window.
All right, guys. Great job. We'll be back next week for LaFleur and what's
The
Jeremy
life and death of Jeremy Bentham.
yeah, that
Jeremy
was
Bentham. Yeah. There you go.
so that's next week. But
Good ones. Those are good ones.
My favorite all-time relationship. I was never a shipper, but Juliet
Juliet,
Sawyer.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
they're the best. They're the best.
better than Penny and Desmond.
Ooh.
Yep. For me, yeah.
Mm.
Whoa.
And
Wow.
Elizabeth Mitchell is just great. She's a great actress, great
She's-
to work with, super nice.
I bet.
So-
Yeah. She's great.
So excited to see that relationship form.
For sure.
She was a great addition to the show for sure.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Besides, Juliet has a submarine, and Penny doesn't even have a boat.
There you go.
Ralph talking smack.
That's stupid. All right, I'm out.
Ralph smack talk.
Yeah,
I'm
I was
deleting
looking for a
it.
wife that was on my. I go, do you have a submarine, a boat? Nothing. Okay, well, I guess I'll marry you anyway. All right, guys, great job.
Thank you.
Thanks, Jack.
Thanks,
Bye,
Jack.
everybody.